Hi, I'm back. I didn't go very far. I'm in the same spot. Sometimes I don't record them on the same day, but this week I am. The story that I'm going to share with you this week is by an author that was actually a famous football player. And he's not playing football anymore, but he started playing for the Georgia Bulldogs, which is kind of like Gilderland. And then he played for the Patriots, I think. And he doesn't play anymore because he had a knee injury. But the author of the book I'm going to share with you, his name is Malcolm Mitchell. And after I'm done and you move on to the next slide, there's actually a little video about Malcolm Mitchell. And he talks about it because, you see, he couldn't read very well. And it made him really nervous. And he could never find his most favorite book in the whole world. So he loves to share that with friends, and he wrote a book titled My Most Favorite Book in the Whole Wide World. And I'd love to share that with you. Sometimes when I read a story, I'll be right here in the library. Sometimes you won't see my face and you might just see the pages of a book. And those are usually the two different ways that I share something with you. So I want to share a little note from the author right at the beginning. It says, the kid in this book is named Henley, but Henley, well, he's a version of me. When I was a kid, reading was my biggest challenge. It was the thing that scared me most because it was such a struggle in school. When we were asked to do what was called round robin reading, you know, when Mrs. Johnson was little, we did round robin reading. And really, we were all around the table with the teacher, and she would call on the first person to start reading, and then the next person, and the next person, and so you knew when it was going to be your turn. My worst nightmare was listening to each student read, knowing my turn was coming. As the book's passage made its way toward me, my hands would get clammy, my armpits would sweat, and my heart pounded like a nervous drum. Nothing felt lonelier than being a kid in a class who could not read well. Deep down inside, I knew I was smart, as everyone else. I also knew that I really liked stories and pictures that went with them. Fortunately, through an athletic scholarship and people that believed in me, I was able to go to college. That's where my reading struggles really showed themselves. And he continues to share the story about not being able to read and going to the grocery store, and he picked up the wrong item because he couldn't read what was on the label. And he says, mistakes like that kept happening, and they showed me that I had to make a decision. So he made the decision to practice reading as much as he practiced football and become a better reader. And that's why he decided to share that story with you. The copyright date of this book, or its birthday, so just like you have a birthday, books have a birthday, and it's called the copyright, is 2021. It is a brand new book. So brand new that I took it out of the box and I haven't gotten it ready for the shelves yet. Hi, I'm Henley, and this story is about finding my very favorite book in the whole wide world. Reading can be hard, you know. Once upon a time, everyone thought I hated to read. That wasn't true. I love the illustrations. Malcolm Mitchell did not illustrate this book. He was not the author-strator. He wasn't both. He was the author and Michael Robertson as the illustrator. In some books, the whole words were too big and the sentences too long, and there were too many pages. And in his head, he shares in the illustration that it felt like it was saying, blah, 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 blah. In other books, the pictures have zero to do with the cool things I like or what's inside of me. I do try, but some books are so giant, if I stood on them, I'd be giant. Other books are so boring, I'd rather use them as pillows. I don't know if I'd want to use a book as a pillow, though. That would kind of hurt. When I'm supposed to be reading homework, I'd rather be playing football in the backyard. When I'm asked to read the cookbook to help dinner, I'd rather see how many grapes I can fit in my mouth. Once I took a giant wagon full of books to the town swimming pool to find out if they could swim. Oh, please don't do that to your library books. I love the illustrations in this book. I think probably Michael Robertson used a computer to create these illustrations. When I tried to read books about dinosaurs, they made my brain hurt. So I gave the books back to the dinosaurs. I've tried reading books about mountains, pickles, aliens, monsters, cats chasing mice, mice chasing cats. I even found a book about cats chasing mice up a mountain while aliens eat pickles with monsters. None of them made reading easier or more fun. All that changed when Mrs. Joy gave the worst homework assignment ever. I wonder if it's going to change for good or bad. Do you think? I think I can predict. Find your very favorite picture book in the whole world and bring it to school tomorrow. It can be a book about anything. Just make sure you love it because you'll be sharing it with the class. The school bell sounded like 100 horns blowing in my ear. Thinking about the yucky homework assignment gave me a super headache and made my hands sweaty. If you had to pick your most favorite book in the whole wide world, what would you pick? Maybe you could share it with somebody that's home with you. On the way home from school, I stopped by the mighty library, hoping to find a book that could be my very favorite. My friends went into the library ahead of me. When it comes to finding books, I'm not so fast. Inside, there was a nice man sitting behind a jumbo-sized desk. I asked him if he could help me find my very favorite book in the whole wide world. I'm going to take the jacket off because it's not quite ready yet. Look though, friends, I love unwrapping a book. Nothing like the book jacket. All right. He showed me books about science and adventure and squishy animals. He flipped through the pages of a book about flags, farms, and holidays. He found plenty of books with twisty big words, sentences as long as my legs, and pictures that tangled the pages. It gave me the heebie-jeebies. When I saw my friends in the middle of the library having fun and reading, I felt more lost than ever. The next place I tried was Mrs. Rackley's bookshop. Maybe she could help me find my most favorite book. Mrs. Rackley did what she does best. She brought piles and piles of books. I looked and looked and looked, but I couldn't call any of them my favorite book in the whole wide world. All those pages and all those words made my eyes tired. I realized it was going to take a book miracle to find my very favorite book. I grew a sad face and stomped all the way home. Maybe you haven't found your most favorite book in the whole wide world yet. That's okay. Mama was unloading the dryer and she could tell I was having a crummy day. I told her about the worst ever homework assignment. The librarian and Mrs. Rackley tried their best to help me find a book, but it was no use. I'll never find my very favorite book in the whole wide world. What do you think she's going to tell him? I read it, so I already know what she's going to tell him. With a voice as warm as a roll from an oven, Mama said, Henley, sometimes the best stories can be found inside ourselves. After a sweet kiss on the forehead, Mama's words, they lit up inside of me. That's when I had a brilliant idea. The next morning, I could hardly wait for my turn to share my very favorite book in the whole wide world. Do you think he found one? What was his brilliant idea? He had been to the library. He'd been to the bookstore. He said he didn't have one. What could he do? You know? I stood proud as my eyes and all the eyes in the reading circle stared at me. Everyone thinks I hate to read, but that's not true. Yes, some words are too big and some sentences are too long, but that's not my biggest challenge. Before today, I just hadn't found a book I wanted to read. I hadn't found the words or pictures or pages or sentences or subjects that showed me. So last night, I wrote a book. It's called My Very Favorite Book in the Whole Wide World. It's about a big, fat, bumpy journey to finding the perfect book. My book has words and pictures and pages that show me, and that show you, me. He wrote a book about himself and finding his most favorite book in the whole wide world. When I started reading my book out loud for everyone to hear, I struggled, but soon my words began to flow. The pictures I drew danced off the pages, and everyone can have a very favorite book in the whole wide world, even if to do that, you have to write one yourself. When I was done telling my story, all my classmates clapped and cheered. My teacher gave me a gold star on my homework, and that's the truth. Look at the pride in that picture. All right, friends, that'll happen every week. You'll have a treasure chest video. You'll have a read aloud video. Sometimes you'll have extra things, like I shared with you that I put a video about the author Malcolm Mitchell that you can watch if you want to. Sometimes I include maybe a coloring page or a drawing video. Friends, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. That's there for you if you want to. So for example, if you moved on to the next slide, you would see that I put a coloring page with a heart hugging a book, kind of like your favorite book in the whole wide world. So if you'd like to color that, you can. If you choose not to, that's okay. All right, I will see you next week from the library at Westmere to share another amazing library story. Bye for now. I hope your week is super awesome, fantastic.